I will go all out when I have these people against these people. I will take the war to them. It's no longer be a war where we sit and we're waiting for them to attack and then we'll respond. So in the short term, that's what I will do. At the same time, understanding that the economy is a major factor in this war, I will do everything to engineer or activate or reignite our economy. What can we do? Okay, I will deal with the issue of economy when we get to economic questions. In the medium term, we understand that it takes about 7 months to train a soldier, 3 years to get the soldier battle ready. For too long, we've treated this war like a war that's going to end today. So we don't plan long term. But we've seen this war has gone on for over a decade now, whereas we plan like the war is going to end in 6 months. That's why governments come in and say 6 months time they'll end the war. This war has an ideological component, so we must plan long term. So I plan to recruit an additional 1 million men and women into our army. I also plan to bring in place technology into this war. You have countries like Israel that are perpetually at war. How do they protect themselves? We saw the Kaduna train bombing happen. And what was sad, what was embarrassing was that our security agencies could not see a stretch from Abuja to Kaduna. There's technology available that allows us to monitor our country, our borders, our highways. We'll bring on board technology. When President Buhari came on board, he inherited a 100 billion naira internal security budget from President Jonathan. Since he has been president for 7 years, his budget for internal security in a time of war has not gone above 100 billion naira. He does not spend half of that. There's inflation, there's recession, the price of diesel is about 900 naira a litre today, and that's a main component of the armament that they use. So our security agencies are underfunded. I will fund them adequately.
Let me just follow up on that. You talk about funding. Nigeria as it stands, over 11 trillion has gone into the battle against insurgency, especially. So some would say it's not about the money. And you also talked about the borders and how you're going to deploy technology. Can you tell us exactly? Because as it stands, we have over 1,000 unmanned parts and portions of our borders, which some would say some of the issues we're dealing with insecurity, they're carried out by non-state actors from across the border. They operate and go back. So talk to us about that, really.
Okay. The government in the last 2-3 years spent a lot of money, capex, on equipment. So, Mr. Ken here, let's assume Ken buys a brand new Mercedes car. If he buys this car and does not have money to put fuel in that car, can that car serve its purpose? This is one of the major challenges facing the Nigerian government. They award contracts, they know how to award contracts, but they don't plan for the OPEX that will sustain the armament that they brought in. That's why after a long time we find that they're not able to even maintain the equipment that they bought. That's why you see our planes falling out of the sky. Because the OPEX is what's key to the war. You also mentioned 1,000 kilometers of pathways that non-state actors use. There's technology. We can use drones. You have drones that have huge payloads that can stay in the air for 3 days, 4 days. That can monitor every land, every pathway in Nigeria. That's how other countries monitor their borders. We don't do this because there are people in government who are so corrupt and they benefit from the insurgency, because that's the only way they can award contracts. You've heard about what's happening, the sleaze in the oil and gas sector, where our pipelines are being busted. and you've heard about how people bring in huge VLCs, right? And they carry that oil out. It's not possible unless there are people in government who want it to happen. In your vehicle, I use a vehicle again for this analogy. If the tank in your vehicle ruptures, your gauge immediately tells you that you are losing fuel. Not so. That's the same thing that happens with our pipelines. They know that the pipe has been busted. They know someone is taking the oil out. They don't speak because they are in cahoots with these people.
What I will do differently is bring on board technology that ensures that there's minimal human interference in the process.
Thank you so much. Mr. Presidential Candidate, I want to find out your views of state police. A lot of states in Nigeria are tired of the centralized policing system that we have. And that's why you see them bringing all sorts of policing systems, some policing systems like Dumebi, and what happens in the Southwest, and all of that. I want to find out what exactly you can do alongside the National Assembly to ensure that the issue of state police is given a definitive answer, because we see in previous governments, including this one, playing politics with it, and the Attorney General of the Federation going out of his way to even threaten some states that vigilante group and all these state policing associations are banned, and it's only the federal police that will be recognized. Yet you see some state governments buying cars and all of that for the police, giving them monies and all of that. So what exactly do we need to do to reform the police to serve us? And then secondly, I want to talk about the proposal that the former president or former head of state, General Ibrahim Babangida, had brought into place. Trying to put in place was called National Guard there. National Guard was a mixture of both the army and the police, something that is neither military and neither is the police. A medium force that will help to protect the nation's territory when there are issues of internal security, but it was eventually killed because there were political dimensions ready to it. But we have somehow seen the military performing their functions even when we don't have the National Guard in place. The military is in about 34 states of the country on the streets performing police duties, and sometimes some of them are even collecting money just like police. Do you intend to revisit such a policy, bringing a sort of a national and internal security system that has the capacity to be like the army, but it's not the army, and then it's stronger than the police, but could help to work with the police and the army to curb whether internal insurrection or the issues of banditry or the issues of kidnapping that we are having at the moment.
Thank you. State police or police at all levels of government is a must. It is long overdue. We must start decentralizing agencies
Have to do with the people. No more national guard, national this, national that. We must take these things down to the people. If you look at our current society, you must understand why there are pros and cons for state police. Those in federal government, when they're in power, they believe that if you have state police, that the governors will be too strong because the governors will use the state police to muzzle their opponents and ensure that they perpetuate themselves or their cronies in power. Just the same way the governors accuse the federal government of using the current police force and the army to also oppress them. How do you then solve this problem? The suspicion we have on both sides. They are suspicious of each other because their intentions are not good. So if you have a country that works for everyone, where people understand that one of the key elements or the fundamental duties of a governor or the president or the local government chairman is guaranteeing the freedom, the rights to life and property.
we will all know that state police or police at local government level must be in place. But again, look at this. At the local government level, they cannot afford to pay teachers right now. The states are unable to pay salaries. Do you now bring on state police, and how do they pay them? That's another problem. But how do you tackle this? We have governors, local government chairmen, people in Nigeria today who all they do is get into office and wait for FAC, the money that comes from Abuja at the end of every month. They share that money, and that's what they use to operate. Every state in Nigeria can be self-sustaining. Every state in Nigeria can do without the money that's currently coming from Abuja. They need to start with what they know or what they don't know. I was in Kogi State about 10 days ago. As I approached the state, saw the flood victims, saw the flood still in place there, saw a city that had no good roads, saw abject poverty in that city. What struck me was the fact that Kogi State is one of the richest states in Nigeria. But the governor, the young man there, is depending on the money that comes from Abuja. He has not looked at the wealth in his place. Aqua life, solid minerals, minerals above the ground. No roads. They have the best laterite in Kogi. They have rocks in Kogi. They have cement in Kogi. The components to make any road. No money. They have fish life. They can sustain a domestic market or exports. They have gold, tantalite, limestone. There's no mineral that you couldn't find in that state. Yet the people live in abject poverty. Every state in Nigeria, including FCT, can do without the money. They can survive without the money that comes from Abuja. But because governors go into office, these people go into office to look for the money that comes from Abuja, when they get there, they become intellectually lazy. They cannot think and decipher or imagine how they can make money. Tell you guys this. The greatest wealth of Nigeria, it's not the oil and gas. It's not even the solid minerals I've mentioned. It's the Nigerian people. The Nigerian people. Nations pray for populations like this. They are a quality workforce. They are ready-made markets. Imagine if the 50 million odd people who are not working today, if we created an enabling environment for them to try, for them to work. Imagine if they were paying, say, 5,000 naira in taxes every month. 5,000 naira by 50 million, imagine what that would do for the coffers of the government. But they believe that we are a liability. Whereas government is there to ensure that people should work, so that people can contribute their quota in society. Thank you.
All right. Please give him a round of applause. Well, the second question he asked you about...
Yes, I said that we must de-emphasize national at this point. We have too much national. We have the current police. We have the EFCC federal national. We have ICPC federal national. We have the Army, Navy, all those, they are national. There's no need for national anymore. What we should do is we should bring on board state police. We should have municipal police or local government police.
Right.
And we must mitigate against the fear of those in the federal government about what governors will do. So what we should do with state police is also ensure that the police is elected. The police chief at local government level is also elected. So they know that they are working for the people and they are not appointed by a governor who can remove them.
We're talking about changing up the constitution as it stands right now, and I was even talking about the fact that our federal system of government needs to be rejigged. But we'll get to that. Do we have people who have questions on insecurity? Just on insecurity. We'd love to take just two questions
on this issue
before
of
we move on.
security.
one, that's two. Please tell us your name and go directly to your question.
I must say, it's really great, and I would say it's very, very wonderful listening to you, watch you on Arise TV and so many other media platforms. It's also great to see that we have a young and vibrant presidential candidate that is not really on paper. Very, very interesting. And that's why I want to tell everybody here that I think this is the right time for us to draw a line and not sacrifice competence on the altar of ethnicity or religion. So I must say, it's wonderful listening to you. You speak so much with passion, you speak so much with understanding of the problems, and you also spoken so much with detailed answers to the solution. So you talked about, you've spoken wonderfully about security, funding, and all that. But I think one area which I want you to actually take your purposes of discourse is the area of the morale of our security architecture, the security personnel. When I listen to the vice presidential candidate talk about the fact that you have most of these security personnel, the military guys in Sambisa Forest, here call their children and hear that these children are out of schools. I don't want to mention my profession, but I must say that with the little I've actually seen, not hard, please, with the little I've seen, or with the bunch I've seen, the personnel in the Nigerian military and the police are not well taken care of. And it is because probably the problem comes from the top, so that whatever funding is sent out to these people do not really get to them. Because I would want to say that if I'm a military person, sorry, I'm talking, it's important. If I'm a military person that is fighting Sambisa Forest, and I hear that my son is sick, and they cannot get medical attention, I hear that my son is out of school, there's not how I want to fight for the country. So please, what are you really going to do when you become president to boost the morale of these military personnel? I think that is very important, besides the issues of state police and then funding for the security architecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll come to you, but let's get the lady. There was a lady who raised her hands. Please give her. Please, let's get your name. We would like to know you as you ask the questions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Aisha Mohammed from Kebbi State. So my question goes to the able president to give us all this. If he becomes the president, how is he going to handle the security challenge we are facing in terms of our farm aspects and protection of our agriculture, as that which is the most important as our feeding and our way of sustenance as we actually.
Securing the farms, quite critical. So I know we said two, but raised his hand. So I don't know if you mind just adding that one more question. Then no, there's a man who raised his hand here. Just quickly go straight to the point.
Just two questions that we need to take because we still have other things.
I'm Yusuf of Sokoto State. Your Excellency, my question is just direct. I just come here at town hall meeting to ask you what plan you made to the people of Sokoto, Kebbi, and Zamfara, because we are the people that face security challenge of military activities. On my way to Abuja, wallahi, we sleep at rock, but they block the roads.
It is a pathetic situation. So thank you so much for that question. So Your Excellency, over to you. How you intend to deal with banditry, securing the farmlands, and of course when it comes to dealing with morale of our security agents. Over to you.
Okay. I typically like to talk about the problems behaving in Nigeria. Like Nigeria is a bucket with multiple holes that is leaking from multiple holes. And people always ask you, what are your top 7 issues you will deal with? Top 3, top 5 issues. And I tell them that because our country is a bucket that has about 40 holes leaking, that as president of Nigeria, I will fix all those holes because I'm leading a rescue mission that will have competent men and women manning all key sectors to ensure that all sectors work at the same time. Why did I answer this question from this angle? Everything was your questions you guys have asked, they are all hinged on issues arising from other sectors. You spoke about morale. A soldier is at the war front, but here in Abuja, his children are out of school because either they can't afford school fees, or schools are short, or they go to hospitals they're not taken care of, or all that. Earlier on when I was speaking, I said that I will ensure that our military is properly funded. Nigeria is a country of many inequities. It's a country of injustice. It's a country where we underpay our people. When a government cheats her citizenry, the government is saying to those people, do anything you can. I always wonder why when people are caught for corruption, they did something, they stole, why they can't go to court. I stole because I had no other option to survive. It's a case I'd like to see taken all the way to Supreme Court. I run a site in Abuja here. Almost on a daily basis, I have workers who steal. No matter the number of policemen who you bring to arrest them, the next day, somebody else will steal. And when you look at the reason why they are stealing because that's the only way they can afford to survive. We need to deal with the injustice and inequalities in our system, and it starts from government paying a fair wage for a job that has been done. That's how we deal with the issue of morale, because when we tackle all our multifaceted problems, it deals with some of the issues you mentioned. The lady there talked about Kebbi State and the farms. And earlier on I said that one of the issues we face today, which we must speak frankly about, is the fact that we have a president whose body language said that leave the borders open. My kids and kin, any part of the world, they are welcome here. And so they let our borders, they left them open so people walked into this country. But what those people have showed us is that, yes, we might be kith and kin, but we are not your people. We don't care for your people. So that's why they try to destroy our way of life. They rape our women, kill our men, plunder our farms. It's a big crisis. And what you hear as Nigerians in the media is that people here, Fulani headers, did this. And then immediately you have this anger towards Fulanis as a whole, not understanding that we have foreigners who are not Nigerians who are doing these things to us. So we must speak and address our problems directly. We have foreign terrorists who are destroying our way of life, who we must go after these people. As president of Nigeria, my promise to you is that Nigeria is for Nigerians and for those who want to live peaceably in Nigeria. I will not tolerate any such issues of insurgency, people terrorizing our citizenry, people plundering our farms. Absolutely out of the question. Not only my body language, I don't have to tell my commanders in the field, like what you see every day, that the president has instructed. Why is the president instructing? Is it not their job? Under my watch, don't do your job. You will see action immediately. So the next man that comes in there, he will know what to do. If it means me sacking the chief of army staff on a daily basis till somebody comes and says this man means business, I will do it. Enough of this nonsense.
Security, as enshrined in Section 14 of the Nigerian Constitution, is a right for everyone. And we've seen him giving us what he intends to do. But one thing we will look at also is the fact that after security, the next thing people worry about is the economy. As it concerns the economy, we've seen Nigeria from 2015 till now. We've seen how the food prices have gone up, inflation over 20%, youth unemployment over 33% and climbing on a daily basis. The debt climbing. And some people would say one area that needs to be tackled is the big issue of subsidy. If you don't remove it, you're not able to grow your economy, because like it or not, Nigeria's economy is still heavily dependent on oil. So that leads me to my question to you. Last year alone, Nigeria spent a whopping 9.8 billion on subsidy alone. And we've seen that, yes, promises have been made that that will be taken off. But you, on your own, I remember you had told me when I asked you this issue before that subsidy removal is inevitable. Everyone talks about we have to. But will you, and what measures would you put in place to cushion the effect? And marry that with the fact that the economy needs to grow as our population is growing before we can see growth in Nigeria. So, short term, medium term, long term, how do you intend to grow the GDP of Nigeria so that way Nigerians are at least able to feed?
Thank you. I don't
hear people say government spent X amount on subsidy. The right language we should use is that a few men
shared X amount of money. Subsidy is a fraud perpetrated on the Nigerian people, the brunt of which is borne by the Nigerian masses. As president of Nigeria, subsidy will not exist. On the first day, in fact, this country is crumbling today because of the weight of that fraud. The president should actually remove subsidy today. But they tell the president, if you remove subsidy, poor people, how will they survive? Right? The issue is that the poor people are already struggling under his presidency. The subsidy is making a few people richer. That money, they take it outside of Nigeria. I will get rid of subsidy. And in getting rid of subsidy, the money that I save from subsidy,
I will use it to tackle social infrastructure. So, check this out.
In Nigeria, look at our mass transit systems, inter and intra. Most of our poor people, or people at the lower rung of the ladder, can't really afford this. Some people I see travel from
Sokoto and Dumebi, other places to get here. Find out how much they paid.
Subsidy, if you want subsidy to go to the masses, put subsidy in mass transport, in mass transit systems. Put subsidy in the trains. Put subsidy in education. Put subsidy in healthcare. That's how to ensure, if you want to give money to the masses, that's how to ensure that the money gets to the masses. But again, another question is that you need to grow the GDP.
Current government and successive government, the truth is that they are clueless. I say they are
clueless because they are operating in a time that is more than them, that is past their time. They are not able to understand what today is saying. Earlier on, I said that in trying to regrow this economy, we must start looking at the Nigerian people. We must start investing in the Nigerian people. We must get our people back to work. How do you get our people back to work? I'll take sector by sector basis. Let's take agriculture, for example. A lot of people, majority of our population, they are in farms. Right now, they are in farms, but they are hardly able to produce because of the terrorists who are in our farms. If I deal with the issue of security, what will I do with the farmers? I will take farming from subsistence farming, which is what they do now. They farm to survive. I will take farming to agribusiness. I will turn farmers to agripreneurs. Farmers all over the world are some of the richest people. In Nigeria, farmers are the poorest people. We must retrain them, we must retool them. We support them with farm services.
One of the challenges that they have today is storage and processing. You farm, within a few days, what you produce, it perishes. They have no means of processing or storing these things. I will have an agro-processing center in every senatorial district.
An agro-processing center, what it does is that businessmen who have looked at what those districts produce is raw material for their businesses. Let's say you are making
rice bran or cornflakes. Let's say you are making
soya bean product, or let's say you are making bean cake or something, and you know that in this senatorial district you have the raw materials for that. You go into the agro-processing park, you set up a business there. Your raw material is what the farmers in that place are producing. You are an off-taker for whatever they produce. They can never produce and lack or look for someone to buy. Immediately go straight into the park. The person in the park has access to storage and processing. It's easy for him to start his business because government has provided the common facilities for every business to thrive there. So all the farmers are guaranteed of off-takers. I will have what I call a farm-to-fork model. A complete value chain that ensures that people, everyone within that value chain is catered for and they are wealthy. Let's take the service structure. In Nigeria, today we have the arts driving our economy, or driving our popularity across the world. Our music is all over the world. Our film industry all over the world. Who is making the money? Our people? No. Netflix, Amazon, Paramount Plus.
They're the ones making Spotify. They're the ones making all the money. Why? We don't even have
a platform that aggregates our music in Nigeria that we can sell to our people in Nigeria and we can export to the world.
What does it take? Understanding, foresight.
Nigerians are some of the most intelligent people who are building such platforms across the world. Every day I come across engineers who say they have been out of work for 2 years, 5 years. Architects, graphic artists, talented people who don't have work. Let me tell you what some nations do. How many of you have heard of Freelancer? Fiverr. There are platforms that government supports, incubates, that enables their citizens
to thrive. So as an architect in Nigeria, from the comfort of your home, you can sell architectural services to people all over the world and earn foreign exchange. I pay architects all over the world. I pay for services all over the world. I don't know them, I've never seen them. You have a platform that guarantees your payments and guarantees that you get the service for what you pay. Governments do that so that their people can work and so they can bring in scarce foreign exchange. Our people are not working. We don't
have platforms like that because our government cannot begin to understand what those platforms can do. That's why I said technology, the language of today, is a language our government can't understand. It's beyond them.
You're looking at the economy. No, I mean the economy is the deep topic. If you
I can start looking at other.
Because we have to also take questions from people, the audience, to actually speak to some of the issues that you're raising. Because I'm interested in knowing your job creation formula. What do you intend to do? Because a lot of Nigerians are out of jobs people who are just coming out of the universities. Some of them are untrained, skilled. How do you intend to set that up? And I'm sure people are also interested in knowing how more people can get food on their table, because the issues of national food security is there. Look at the floods that came. The floods have made a lot of Nigerians more poorer. I need to know more about that from the perspective of someone who really wants to create jobs and put food on the table. And then lastly, let's talk about the big vision. You've talked about how to improve on several areas. But I want to know, where will you be getting the money from to do some of these projects? You want more people to the army, into the police and all of that. And our economy is shrinking at the moment. What's your foreign exchange policy? How do you intend to get more dollars for the country in the midst of the foreign exchange crisis that we're having?
Thank you. Good question. Okay, I'll try and summarize the answers. Good question. I was already leading into the question when I was talking about my job creation policy, what I will do in different sectors, from agriculture. Earlier when I talked about tourism, how we must start creating good paying jobs in the tourism sector, right? I talked about service industry, what people must do with platforms that they can use to sell services outside Nigeria. Nigeria is an English-speaking nation. Earlier on in my presentation, I said that India, a huge sector in India, thrives on selling telecenter customer services all over the world. We speak better English here. Why are we not doing that? There are so many jobs we can create just with technology and just with the right broadband infrastructure. The challenge we're talking about here today about foreign exchange, this government is paying lip service to this. Let me tell you why.
If you were to ask the CBN governor,
or if you were to bring all the bank CEOs in a panel and ask them, you are complaining about our foreign exchange. Today, I think the dollar is doing about 900 today, if not more. Why is that? We know this has to do with our balance of trade. To strengthen your naira, you have to be exporting more than you are importing. If you were to ask the CBN government in the last 7 years, that he should tell you how many new Nigerian businesses started in the area of export. Or if the banks can tell you just in this year alone, how many new businesses started. Services. That will tell you about what is going on in our country. A clueless bunch. We know we have to export.
we're not even funding people to start new businesses. What kind of country allows a situation where for you to even get a loan from a bank, you need to find someone who knows the CEO of the bank or knows an ED in the bank? Why can't you get a loan on the basis of the business you are doing? After all, you have been banking with the bank for 10, 15 years. They pay lip service to this. This is a rent-seeking economy.
In an import-dependent economy, inflation starts at the port. Not so. It's common sense. In Nigeria, they have a flat rate today. So a young girl, a 23-year-old, wants to bring in a container load of, say, hair or something to sell. Let's assume the value of what she's bringing in is 1 or 2 million naira. She must pay minimum 5 million naira for a 20-foot container. A 40-foot container, that's where inflation comes from. Now, mind you, several years ago, under Jonathan, will pay for transportation from Lagos to Abuja, 120,000, 170,000. Do you know how much it is today? About 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 million. Where does that money go to? You. That's why you have inflation. Government shouts about inflation, but all their policies give rise to inflation. Every single policy of this government gives rise to inflation. We must get rid of these killing policies that oppress our people. There's nothing wrong with importing. There are countries, if you go, the Caribbeans, even some European nations, they are import-dependent economies. Every state in Nigeria, I said earlier, can be self-sustaining, self-supporting, has something that it can sell not only to Nigerians, but to the rest of the world. We need to identify those things, we need to support them, incubate them, and ignite them for them to export and unleash the economies in those states.
I'm excited. I don't know about you. Please give them a round of applause. You're talking about increasing our foreign exchange. I like the fact that you're not looking only at borrowing. Don't get me wrong. Borrowing is not a bad idea. The United States is the biggest debtor in the world, but it's what you borrow for. So I like the fact that looking for the solutions from here, let's export, get that foreign exchange in here. So, 2 questions now from the audience, and let's be partial here. Let's see from, yes, that's 1. 2, we need a second. Okay, that's the young man with the blue. Just 2 questions, please. Please, your name and go directly to your questions. Thank you.
The incoming president. My question goes to the area of agriculture. Nigeria as a country, we don't produce. Even if we produce,
what does that mean? As an elected president, those areas we need sensitization. Those things are hitting over people, and I would like you to be repeating those things.
See.
Yes, that's what it's going to be.
Alright, so, Excellency, over to you.
Okay, so a lot of the 2 questions, I think I spoke extensively on them earlier in terms of agriculture. I think I devoted almost 10-15 minutes on agriculture, on what I will do with agriculture. The broad strokes of my plan is to get farmers from subsistence farming, to get them to be agripreneurs, engaged in the business of agribusiness. I will support them with farm service centers,
close to their neighborhoods. I will ensure that they have agro-processing parks that ensures that they have guaranteed off-takers for whatever they are able to produce. The more you produce, the more income. Farm Service Center is to train you, to give you seedlings, to give you mechanized farming support. Whatever you need to aid you in agriculture, you will be found in farm service centers that will be in every local government area. Security in the farms, I spoke about it. I said we can people protect themselves? You know, we had this government say they have banned AK-47s, but we've not seen them prosecute anyone, because we see people in the last 10 days. We can see what's happening in Benue. They are still killing farmers. They are killing farmers in Katsina. Tell you what, guys, it's your right to protect yourself, your property, your family. I will ensure that anyone who is willing, who is able to arm himself, to equip himself with arms, to defend his home, his state, that he does that. The battle the military they are facing today is not a battle for them alone. Nigeria is one of the only countries that's at war that I've seen in the world where the Nigerian people don't even realize that their countries are at war. In most countries, if we come here, people will be wearing pins supporting the military. You see people doing telethons, raising money for the military, for their families. The headline news every day, watch our news. They don't even give you a daily update on what's going on in the war front. Until Nigerians realize that our nation is at war, have that mindset, are security conscious, provide intelligence to our military. To also bring money. It's a war effort. It's collaborative. It's collective. Security is a job for everyone. On exchange rates, earlier on I talked about subsidy and the arbitrage we have there and how people benefit from that. We've seen a lot of people talk about what's going on where they give someone an allocation of $1 million, $2 million, and the person makes X amount of money. So we definitely need to get rid of that. We need to structure that sector, the bureau de changes that we have there, ensure that they are properly run, properly regulated, and once the CBN maintains one, not two, not three, one.
Thank you so much, Sir Presidential Candidate. Well, we are moving very fast, like I said, so that we're able to tackle some issues. Very quickly, I said that we will focus more on governance and politics, but our elderly father here said we should take a look at education. And I thought
it's quite important, because I know it's something Dumebi is actually quite passionate about, because you have actually found a link between, you know, an illiterate population to the current insecurity currently bedeviling Nigeria. And as it stands, 20 million children are out of school. Nigeria, we don't have one university in the top 1,000 in the world. That was not the case. 70s. So, directly to you. Tackling education. ASU strike is almost a yearly thing since 1986.
They are warming up to go for another strike.
They're warming up again.
Talk to us about how you intend to improve not just the education in Nigeria and also guarantee security of our schools, where because of that now we're seeing a lot of young people, especially girls, avoid schools because they don't feel they're safe there. Safe education, improve the quality in the short, medium,
ICT, I'm also interested in knowing your ICT policy in terms of strengthening the education sector to train a lot of Nigerians, because people go out of their ways to pay so much to learn ICT now. There's a lot of interest in that. How do you make all of this to have a sound educational policy?
Because of course you know that kindergarten education, primary education belongs to mostly the states.
Okay. Interesting question on education and security. And I will take you guys down memory lane very, very fast to understand what's going on here. Starting with ASU, I talked about the Nigerian Patriot
Act, and I said that once I ensure that everyone in the public service, right, our lecturers, every single one of them, that they and their kids, that they utilize public schools. That the president's family, his kids, they go to public schools. You won't have ASU strikes anymore because we are all affected. Whatever conversations need to take place will take place. The public universities have the kids of those of the poor. The lecturers who teach in private universities are the same lecturers who teach in public universities. When public universities are on strike, they can afford to go on strike for 6 years. They are earning a salary in private universities. Those lecturers are doing 2 or 3 jobs at the same time. That's why they don't really care. Who suffers? The poor, the masses. They are the ones that suffer. I will ensure that does not happen because, like I said, the kids of public servants. Now, the Nigerian Patriot Act also affects directors of companies like mine. If say you have a license that derives from government, like banking, telecoms, oil and gas, mining, what have you. Those directors, like say Dangote, Adenuga, Elumelu, all the big men, their kids, their families are also affected by this law. They will do everything possible to ensure that our education sector works. The best schools in the world are not funded by government. Do you guys know that? They are funded by private endowments. Rich people give their money to schools. That's their way of giving back. It also helps them
avoid paying taxes. In Nigeria, our rich don't give back. They're not encouraged to give back in any way. We have
universities that don't have hostels. You have young girls having to go and rent places, or young boys rent places outside of school. Schools don't have hostels. It's a shame. Not just on government, but on our rich people. What does it take for them to build hostels? If you take every senatorial district in Nigeria, every state, look at the aggregation of the rich people there. What does it take for them to look at the
requirements in those states? I used to run a company. I'm coming to area of security and education that manages the public safety network of our country.
Under President Jonathan, as Boko Haram activities were increasing, our job was to analyze big data to see what's likely to happen, proper solutions, come up with policies.
We saw that these people were looking for soft targets that would embarrass governments. So we wrote to government, that time the Minister of Police Affairs, also engaged in Nigerian military,
and said, this is what is likely to happen. We need to do X, Y, Z in putting in place security architecture in our schools. I personally wrote 3 letters. This is likely to happen. This is what should be done. All 3 were ignored. 4 months later, Chibok happened. It's not rocket science. We can see what's happening. Put yourself in the minds of the terrorist. What does he want to do? He wants to gain international attention. He needs to strike barracks. We also wrote to them, your barracks are going to be attacked, they're likely to be attacked. This is what you must do. Protect your barracks, because if these people can show that they attacked the Nigerian army, they overran their barracks, it creates this impression that they are strong. We must not allow that happen.
I remember, hear this guys, I remember convincing someone, the head of the
Israeli Aerospace Agency, one of the foremost authorities on security in the world, I convinced him to come to Nigeria to support our military. That we must do something, he must help us. He said that, but Nigeria, they are so corrupt, I don't want to be part of that. I said that these people are serious, that we must do this. He came here. We spent 3 months coming up with solutions for our borders, for our pipelines, for our military barracks, for our war front in the northeast at that point. That was the where we had the major issues then. And in a meeting I had with this gentleman from Israel and our top military people then, I remember making this presentation, showing how we're going to use technology, what we could do, what needed to be done, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. I'll never forget this exchange. The Oga Pata Pata looked at me and said, Dumebi, so this technology I propose that we should do this now. What happens to all those people who supply us bullets? Are they not Nigerians like you? Don't think people want to make money? Also, they don't have businesses to run? I said, sir, this job I'm doing, I'm not making money from it. It's a CSR.
It's a give back to government. The exchange he had with me, that man from Israel heard this in shock.
If we had done what we proposed to do then, what you hear about today in this war, in the insurgency, our borders, our pipelines will not be happening. Let me tell you something funny at the end of that story. Not long after that, that Oga, you know what happened to him? The bullet that he was protecting the suppliers killed him.
Always comes back.
See, we are creating a vicious circle. Our leaders are looting us blind because they don't believe in Nigeria. They believe that Nigeria is not working, and if they live here, how can they manage this society that is not working? No light, no road, no water. That they need to have money that protects them so that they can go overseas for 6 months, 9 months. They are insulated, they can buy big generators, they can afford diesel. Can you imagine if these people were to make Nigeria work? Would you worry about those things? If you provide electricity, you won't worry about generators. If there was water, you won't worry about boreholes. If you secured Nigeria, you won't worry about having 5, 10 policemen around you all the time. If the country were to work for everyone, everyone would benefit from the country that works from everyone.
And that's the way to go.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're going to take 2 quick questions. Please be specific. There's the gentleman.
Questions on this education issue before we just move on to the question.
There was a little girl who wanted to ask a question as we're speaking about education. Please come forward.
I think she has a microphone.
Yes. The gentleman, sorry, we can't take all the questions because the truth is we have to wrap this up soon. So let's hear from her. Please come forward so we can see you clearly.
There are any Zoom questions. I see a lot of people on Zoom.
Go ahead, darling.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sir. My name is Ifel Kishi Ame. My question is on both agriculture and education. On agriculture, sir, how do you promoting commercial farming? Because it involves reduction of poverty. And for education, how do you plan on making education better, improving education? Because some private schools are so expensive. Like the school I go to, they cost like 3 million naira, but the public schools have no education.
Right. Thank you so much, Ifel. You are an incredible young lady. So let's take the gentleman's question. No. Okay.
Sorry, can I answer the young lady?
Wanted to merge all the questions together. If you can go back to your seat, your question will be addressed as soon as possible. Yes, so we're going to ask, he's going to
get a chance, because he was the one who prompted us to go towards education right now. So please, sir, brief question, straight to the point. Thank you.
Optimus Correct, my name.
Very much, sir, for your passion in education. But it appears what we have been observing is not only with ADC, with most presidential aspirants, when it comes to education, they center more or only on formal education. What happens to non-formal education, adult literacy? Because today, we have a figure of over 65 million adults that are not educated. And when you do not educate a person, of course, poverty is certain. And if you do not educate adults, like even the military you want to employ, how will they be able to know how to use these modern weapons that we will want to provide for them? Secondly, what will be your program for the non-formal sector of education?
informal education.
Secondly,
So unfortunately we have to say thank you. Let's stick with those questions so we don't get too carried. Please can you hand the microphone over to the gentleman? We've gotten 2 of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I was thinking it's going to be PLS, participatory learning system. But all the same, my name is Ambassador Idris Musa. I'm from Kaduna State. And I belong to this entire group, right? And apart from that, we have the nomadic education, which I also belong to. When, by the will of Almighty Allah, you come into power, how can you stop these domestic conflicts? The entire people are not illiterate. They are educated. Only that they don't believe, maybe they assume people thought that they belong to, until you have the Western education, then you become an educationist. I belong to one. I am in that group. And majority of my people are terms of government, they remember us one time ago. And even during school in Sokoto, where my own people killed that school, which is too bad. So if you come into government, what are you going to do for the nomadic Fulanis, and at the same time the entire group, and at the same time the Latin Fulanis and
informal education sector. Thank you so much, sir. So,
Unfortunately, we cannot take any more questions on this. So, and informal education.
Very, very important, because nowadays sometimes you see in the banking halls adults asking someone to help them, even signature, they can't really sign very well, and it becomes very difficult. You raise something very important. If we're recruiting people into the army and want to give them modern weapons, and they're not educated, I've seen some of those illiterate soldiers myself, and sometimes, it becomes pretty difficult.
Recognizing illiteracy.
Thank you very much.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Very good questions. I start from the young lady. When I talked about education earlier on, in this day and age, education is mostly about technology. We see our kids who have not even started school. They are able to speak, they are able to count just from watching television. Some of the challenges we face with the illiterate teachers we have today, unfortunately, Nigeria is so corrupt that those who are supposed to teach us are not even tutored. or learning. We can use technology to leapfrog some of those problems. In Rivers State some years ago, they brought in this Indian group to manage some of their public schools, and they were using teaching learning aids where they digitize all the content. And they use these teaching aids to teach these students. The teachers had little interaction. The students were mostly learning from teaching aids. Within 18 months, those schools were the best schools in that state. Unfortunately, when the next governor came, because he didn't award the contract, he scrapped it. We need to use technology to start advancing education, understanding that our kids will compete with kids all over the world in a talent contest. That's where the battleground is. Technology helps us, but we need to use the train-the-trainer model. We need to start retraining our teachers. Talk about adult education. I was going to go into that if I had more time to speak about the economy. I talked about that we need to start retooling our people. We say we have 40, 50 million people who are unemployed. You just highlighted one of the reasons. Because a lot of these people are not educated, so they need to be retooled. They need to be retooled. We need to have as many adult learning centers as possible where they are being retooled, where they are being taught the basics, and where they are being given the skill sets. We need to take our dead polytechnics, teacher training colleges, all those institutes, and retool them to support these people. Do you know that governments like the Benin Republic, Ghana, they have a deliberate policy to train low skill sets? Carpentry, electricians, plumbers, painters, all these people, artisans, and export them to Nigeria. We pay them better than we pay Nigerians. In their country, they are trained, taught trained, they are certified. They come here, they are better than our people. We need to start training our people, certify them, and export them into the rest of Africa. I will also ensure, hear this, and it might not be popular with a lot of people, but under my watch, any parent that uses his child for servitude will be prosecuted. I will not tolerate out of school children. The children do not only belong to the parents, they belong to the country, to the government. We will protect them, we will provide for them. We will ensure that their parents understand that they have custodial rights, supervisory rights. But ultimately, if those children fail, society suffers. So every Nigerian child must go to school.
All right, thank you so much, Your Excellency. So I've been told that there are some people who joined this conversation, the town hall meeting through Zoom. So we want to provide just 2 questions. Unfortunately, we won't be able to go into other issues again. So once we take those 2 questions, we'll now give him 5 minutes to round up, and then we are done here.
Our Muslim brothers have to...
Yeah, because they have to go and say their prayers and all of that, and we'll spend it.
The town hall, this is continuing. Even if we wrap up here in the FCT, he has other plans for other cities across the country, and thank God for technology. You can follow the conversation and even get your questions. And
do we have the Zoom? So can we just pick two of them?
So while we're waiting for them to sort that out, please, sir, when you're rounding up, one critical area that we need to also look at is the cost of governance, the over-bloated wage bill, how you intend to tackle that, and marry that with the fact that here in Nigeria, we've seen
mass migration. We want to call it the Japa syndrome, where a lot of young Nigerians, especially the medical sector, has been hit.
And for me, political question I want to ask you. If we've had former President Goodluck Jonathan doing 4 years, and then of course with like about 2 years becoming president, and then you are coming out from Delta State, you want to be president of Nigeria. How do you answer that question? That I mean, if there should be power shift in the south, it shouldn't go to the south or southwest.
All right.
Power shift to actually go to the southeast of the country. I'm very sure you would have been receiving some of these questions yourself. And then also, let's talk about the issues that we have with ethnicity and religion. When it comes to politics in Nigeria, we are still entrenched in that. So your closing remarks will expect you to talk about these
Absolutely.
issues.
So I hear that a gentleman wants to ask a question via Zoom. So let's have him introduce. Please introduce yourself, tell us your name, and go direct to your question. Go ahead, sir.
But I was already. Now will be the time that you expect that your expensive perfume can shelter you from harassment. That's but for this perfume.
Okay, so I do know that there are some written Zoom questions. Can we read them out? So we don't have them.
On getting to the 5th floor, the door opened and this beautiful lady walked in.
Unfortunately,
that is not.
I knew she experienced that thing here, so that wasn't my problem.
Okay, so if that's the case, can we just democratize this? Can you take another person right there?
You know how you're in a tight situation, nobody's saying anything to you, but you.
Pick any other person randomly.
Do we have a person on standby now? Okay, so please let's have these questions quickly.
Okay, so let us create room for 2 general questions. It shouldn't be related to what we have said. Let it be from a different perspective. So I have one person here, and somebody. Okay, there's a lady here, please. So let's start from you. Do we have the microphone? Please let us give them the microphone.
Lady with a microphone.
Yeah, gentleman on white.
ADC, some people. My name are Triple Chief OTOT. I'm from Exit.
Very quickly,
Please, my president, I have a question to ask.
People they are complaining that they're not giving them the
My question goes like this.
When you are there as the President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, we want to ask because we found out that in 2014 there was what we had as CONFAC. And this CONFAC was all Nigerians from the grassroots ideas, and it was meant by the whole federation to work for them. And we believe that there are some people who don't like that CONFAC. Now, when you go there, please, my president, my number 1 question is that what do you do about that CONFAC?
Okay.
Just one question. You only have one question. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time.
3 persons there because of the complaints. We are combining them together.
There was a lady whose hand was up. Please give the mic to the lady and the gentleman over there.
Just 3, please, so that we live here.
All right. Good evening, Your Excellency. Good evening, everyone. I am Jessica Samuel.
Please, one question and go directly to
my about governance. Like, let me use the local government autonomy for example. We know that development is a thing for the grassroots. When the grassroots is not developed, we can't say our country is developed. But now the resources that will be used for the development doesn't reach the grassroots. Using Taraba State as example.
Very quickly.
When the president and the rest approved that each state should go on local government autonomy, some state government rejected that. They refused to implement it. Now I want to ask, if you become a president, how will you be able to enforce some of those laws? You desire that this is what should be done and it will help the country, but they are not doing it. How will that
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, the other gentleman, and then...
The gentleman there, then there's the other one.
Please make your submission very brief.
Good evening, man. Incoming. My name is Elijah, and my question is, you were talking about those in public service making for their children to go to public schools. Now my question is it not the Senate that are supposed to pass a bill? Because the last time they did such, some of the senators said they were businessmen before they come to public service. So because of that, they had their money. So why should they now take their children out of public private school to public school because they are now in governance? Thank you.
All right. So
the gentleman here.
Please, unfortunately, we can't talk again. We need to leave here.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm Comrade Righteous Nacho, and I want to ask two questions. One
question, please.
It's okay on education. And what will happen if you are the president of this country in the student welfare issue? Because I happen to be the past vice president of Nigerian student, and I see a lot. Even I'm coming from the northern part of the country, where they believe more of just child education is a way, sorry to mention it in that way, whereby our sisters, they don't attend Western education, unlike the southern part of this country. So what will happen if we manage as the president of this country and the welfare of the student, where if we stop them from female students sleeping with the lecturers, get payroll, and other students
Empowering the girl child via education, how you intend to do that? Thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much, Excellency. Let me just add this last one from what measures has INEC put in place to avoid the rigging of the voters' cards at the point of elections? That's his own. He's writing from London. So, well, Excellency, just wrap up all of this with your closing remarks, and we will eventually thank you for being here with us.
Okay, thank you. The young old man talked about the Confab reports. Our challenge as a country was foundational. When the British,
who were a company, this place where we are used to be a big company. When they wanted to exit this company, they handed over to new shareholders. And when they handed over to these new shareholders, they gave them a constitution, similar to if you have a company, what you have a MEMAT. In that constitution, they introduced tribe, tongue,
religion. Because of this, they ensured that this new
company called Nigeria will never work. It was intentional. Every problem we have in Nigeria stems from that. Because of this, you have people who come to our parliament, our National Assembly, who will never pass any law except it favors their tribe or their religion. Simply, what will I do as president? I come from a party, and I'm answering your question when we talk about politics and me coming from the South. I am a Nigerian.
In the new Nigeria,
what is important is that we have a common charter that defines us first and foremost as Nigerians. It also defines what we want out of Nigeria. You can be Joy, Idoma, Fulani, Nupe, Igbo, outside Yoruba, it doesn't matter. In the new Nigeria, the first thing we must do is come together to decide what we want as a people under the green, white, green of our flag. Once we do that, we agree to that. That is what will lead to a new constitution that guarantees what we all want out from Nigeria. The first thing being that Nigeria must work for every single person.
Nigeria must be a country whose borders are secure.
To ideas, they are receptive more to
Nigeria must be a country that guarantees education for her young. Nigeria must be a country that thrives on meritocracy, not mediocrity. Nigeria must be a country that
removes tribe, tongue, and religion.
We will no longer tolerate things like zoning, issue of Muslim tickets, all such nonsense in our dictum, in our language, because we are all one Nigeria. So he asked, I'm from Delta, Jonathan did 6 years. But if you were flying in here, if you were driving with an Uber here, would you ask the driver, where are you from? Let me see if your tribe has ridden this Uber today. What you care is that man is able to drive you safely to your destination. That's what you want from your doctor. That's what you want from your pilot.
We must see a Nigeria that promotes meritocracy.
The best man for the job. Once we do this, we will solve a lot of problems we have. You talked about the civil service, the bloated civil service and cost of governance. The biggest challenge we have there is that they are inefficient. How do we deal with cost of governance? Plug the loopholes, retool those people. We retool them to be an effective or efficient workforce in other key sectors, in revenue generating agencies. That way, whatever is costing us, we are getting times 2, times 3, times 4 from those people. That's what we must do. Tell you what. Imagine if we have farm parks. What's a farm park? A farm park is, let's say you have 10 hectares of land here. You go into this farm park, you and other people, and you are guaranteed that if you farm within these 10 hectares, you get X amount of money. Do you know that most of our civil servants, if they find out that every month they can get 500,000 naira from a farm park, they will quit their civil service job, they will go into the private sector to work. We have made civil service over attractive for lazy people because of the bribe, rent seeking, and what have you. We will make it unattractive. If you seek to be extraordinarily rich, go into the private sector and hustle. That's what you must do. There was a question you talked about, yes, good question.
About local government system, about autonomy.
And a lot of questions about corruption and what you will do to ensure that this is done. As President Buhari came and said he will fight corruption, he will do this. Let me tell you something. My job as President of Nigeria is not to arrest corrupt people. My job as President of Nigeria is not to ensure that a law that has been passed is implemented. But you know what my job is? My job as President of Nigeria is to fire the police chief who does not go after the corrupt person. My job as President of Nigeria is to go after that person who is not implementing the law. I will so fire and I will so hire till Nigeria gets it right. Do you understand? I must not signify that, say, I am being vindictive like this president was. No, that's not my job.
You have to be result-driven.
Result-driven. Let the agencies do their job.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And on a final note, back what you guys said earlier on. Over a week ago, I held a Twitter space, 5 hours. From now on, I'll be holding Twitter spaces twice a week. Twitter spaces are virtual town halls like this. Take questions from Nigerians from all over the world. I want to show Nigerians that we can run this campaign in a different way. It's about ideas, it's about issues, it's about solutions. I will never hire rapper women. I will never carry a bunch of people and give them t-shirt and say, Dumebi this, Dumebi that. But I will also always bring into a fora where we are discussing ideas. Ask me questions. Let me learn from you. Hear from me. Let's interact with each other. Let's learn. Let's come up with solutions on how we can build Nigeria. This is what we must do. And lastly, a lot of people have said to me, why don't you join forces with, say, a Peter Obi, other parties, so we can get rid of these people? Let me tell you this. You've heard me for over an hour now. If you have a candidate who comes, advances arguments like this, will do a better job to get Nigeria right, as a businessman, I am running for office because Nigeria is not working for me. If there's somebody who will do a better job, right, I will gladly face my business. It will always pay me more than being president of Nigeria. Unfortunately, most of the people running for office have held public office and they failed woefully. They don't understand the times and seasons. They don't understand what this generation is speaking. It's a language that they cannot decode. That's why we are going in a different direction. This mountain that we want to climb, guys, let me tell you this. It is a difficult mountain. It's a tough climb. A lot of people, friends, family, they look at you and say you are mad, your money misroad, doesn't know what he's doing. How can you take on these people? It's a tough climb. But tell you what, the only way I can climb this mountain is because I have people like you behind me.
That's very good.
Once you are with me, once you are by my side, once you are behind me, this mountain top, Aso Villa, here we come. Aso Villa, Aso Villa, Aso Villa. God bless all of you.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen,
and before we close, I've been told that there's a group that wants to present a special gift to His Excellency. Can we have them? The Dumebi Support Group, FCT, and Gegena Pep. So, quickly, before we just sing the national anthem, Olivier, on behalf of His Excellency Amaka and myself, we want to thank you.